Have you ever found yourself completely consumed by someone that you barely even know? Maybe the barista who remembered your name and coffee order, or that new guy in your team at work who you hardly know but can't stop thinking about, or the person you cross paths with at the gym once or twice who lives completely rent-free in your mind. Maybe you find yourself thinking disproportionately about these people, fantasizing, imagining what it would be like to fall in love with them, to be in relationship with them. You stalk them on social media, you find out everything you possibly can about them. You wake up in the morning buzzing, leaping out of bed, motivated by just the idea of seeing them. Your obsession with them becomes a sort of fuel that drives you. And maybe you've experienced this and you've wondered, is this love at first sight? Is this person my soulmate? And as much as it might feel like this is some sort of fairy tale romance, what's more likely is that you're experiencing something called limerence, which I like to think of as a crush on steroids. So what is limerence? Limerence is a term that describes a state of obsessive infatuation with someone. And this goes way beyond just I'm interested in someone that I've connected with on a dating app. Limerence is when you are completely consumed by thoughts of this person, and usually in a way that is out of all proportion to reality. One of the defining features of limerence is the element of fantasy, meaning your obsession with this person is not only totally disproportionate, but it's usually unrequited. The other person might be completely surprised to hear that you even think about them, let alone that you're thinking about them all day, every day. So there's this sense of almost being hijacked by someone you hardly even know and creating this fictional narrative in your mind about a relationship that doesn't even exist. And it's not just something that crosses your mind once, it's more likely to be something that is consuming you all day, every day. You're imagining conversations you could have, dates you could go on, trips you could take together. What's it gonna be like when I meet their family? And when we step back and go, okay, this is the barista who made me coffee twice, we realize how completely insane it is. And I say all of this having experienced it before. I used to get this a lot when I was younger. And I think one of the funny things about limerence is even though we know it's a bit crazy, we actually don't want it to stop because it feels so good. And I think that's another really important thing to understand about limerence is it feels like a drug. And that makes sense because dopamine is so heavily involved in limerence. This idea of I feel so motivated to pursue this thing, and every time I get that reward, which might just be running into someone in the hallway at work or having that friendly interaction with the barista, the reward feels so intense because the pursuit has been so all-consuming. And so you experience these huge, exhilarating emotional highs followed by massive dips. And when you're in that trough, that's what motivates you to seek more and more again. And it's actually the process of pursuing and imagining and fantasizing that is giving you some of that high. So while it might culminate in these fleeting interactions with someone, you're actually getting so much of the hit of the drug just by virtue of your own imagination and the fiction you've created. So this is where it gets tricky because a lot of people don't want to let go of the fantasy because the fantasy is the drug. The fantasy is the thing that feels so good. Even if you can recognize that it's probably never going to come to fruition, and maybe you can make your peace with the fact that this person probably isn't your soulmate, a part of you doesn't want to let go of this story that you've created and all of the energy that it gives you because it makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning and put extra effort into how you look and practice being this main character in the love story that you've cast yourself in. So does it matter? Does it matter if you're experiencing limerence? Should you just allow yourself to bask in the dopamine and enjoy the fantasy while it lasts? Well, maybe, but I think if this is something that happens to you often, and for a lot of people it will be a repeated pattern rather than a one-off, it's worth getting curious as to why. What need is it meeting and what is it allowing me to feel or maybe not feel? Because that's going to point me in the direction of things that need my attention in my own inner relationship. And I can speak from experience here. When I used to experience limerence, it was always some romantic fantasy of this person and I are going to have such amazing chemistry and such deep connection, and they're going to see me and think I'm amazing and incredible. So it was actually less about them and more about the fantasy that I created of how they would see me and how I would feel as a result. And that directly stemmed from my very low self-worth and insecurity at that time in my life. So recognizing that might be true for you as well, that maybe the fantasy is less about who this person is and more about how they would feel towards me and how that would make me feel. Maybe I'd feel really loved and chosen and desired and amazing and special feel in this fantasy story that I've created? And if that's the case, then that's something that needs your attention, because you're using these people as stand-ins for a story that is allowing you to feel something as a way to escape the reality, which is that you don't like yourself very much. And that kind of pattern is going to catch up with us eventually, and it's almost guaranteed to prevent us from actually building the kind of secure relationship that we want. Because if we're expending so much time and energy on these made-up relationships and these fictions and imagining what could be as a way to bypass the discomfort of our insecurity or our low self-worth, and we're detaching ourselves from reality, then that's not going to get us any closer to what we want. And I think so many of us who experience limerence deeply want love and romance and depth and connection. Limerence isn't the way you're going to get it, because there's nothing real about limerence other than the feelings that you're experiencing because of the fantasy you're living in. So the questions that I want you to ask yourself if you're struggling with limerence are, what is this allowing me to feel? So maybe that's, I'm feeling confident and desired and excited and chosen and worthy and special. And those are things that I don't usually feel, so it's really nice for me to be able to swirl around in that. If that's the case, that's really good information, and it's pointing you towards qualities and feelings that you might want to cultivate more of in your life in maybe a healthier way. And the other key question is, what is this allowing me to avoid feeling? And maybe that's a sense of rejection or hopelessness or insecurity, anxiety, worry, a lack of confidence, all of those things that are the other side of the coin that maybe feel like a reality that we don't really want to inhabit because we don't know how to actually shift it. So we just hide in the fantasy. So getting curious about those two questions, what am I trying to feel and what am I trying to avoid feeling? And that's going to point you towards the things that need your attention and where your next step lies. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, guys. I hope that that's been helpful. If you've enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments. Let me know if there are any other topics that you'd like me to cover. Otherwise, like, subscribe, do all of the things. I'm so appreciative of your support, and I'll see you again in the next video. Thanks, guys.